Hi, my name is Dr. Dekonti Davies. I received my PhD in mechanical engineering with a concentration in biomaterials and materials engineering. Yeah, so my research was about using metals to develop scaffolds for tissue regeneration and chronic wound healing. So essentially, I use a process called electrospinning, which is a fabrication technique that I was able to use to make a biomimicry type of scaffold. So in wound healing and in our bodies and biology, we have something called the extracellular matrix. And the beauty of the electrospinning process, I was able to mimic the structure of the extracellular matrix to help facilitate wound healing and tissue regeneration. I analyzed and collected my data. So first I had to actually make my scaffolds. So that was a process, and coming up with recipes to actually be able to electrospin, that was a process in and of itself, because there are certain things that we have to account for in electrospinning. So one of which is the viscosity of our electrospinning solution. So if it's too thick, we run the risk of clogging our needle and not being able to generate fibers. But if it's too thin, we run the risk of still not really being able to generate fibers, but droplets of material. And so finding the optimal solution there was the first step to actually start my experiment. So first was making my recipe, making my fibers, and then once the fibers were made, I did a number of different characterization tests from SEM so that I could visualize my scaffolds, or even subsets of SEM like EDX, to be able to see what particles were present. So we were using metallic nanoparticles, so to see if we can confirm that the material that we put in was the material we were getting out as well. Also techniques like XRD and FCIR to look at the crystallinity or the chemical composition of these scaffolds, and also mechanical testing to see how strong my material was, and to see if we could really sustain the forces that our skin sustains as well. Also cell culture. So cell culture was another big part of my testing and data collection. Cell culture was where all the magic happened. We made these scaffolds, but how can we call them biomaterials, or how can we say that they can be used for tissue regeneration if we don't test it? So there I exposed my scaffolds to cells that are commonly found in immune or in tissue regeneration, and I did assays to see how viable my cells were, and I did some imaging to see what the cells were looking like when they were interacting with the scaffolds, as well as if there were any changes in the shape of the cells, how they were attaching to the scaffolds, and how aligned they were as well. I think the most interesting thing that I discovered was to actually really see that tissue regeneration happen. So first part of my dissertation, we did a single cell test, or I'm sorry, a monoculture test rather, and we looked at fibroblasts to see how they reacted when they were exposed to my scaffolds. And then the second part, I ramped it up, and not only did I do fibroblasts, but I did macrophages, which are a type of immune cell that works together with fibroblasts in the wound healing process. So it was interesting to see how they both work together to facilitate the wound healing when they were exposed to the scaffolds. And it was more interesting to see them in co-culture, because in monoculture we don't really get the full picture. We see one cell, but our bodies are a complex system. We don't just have one cell type in our body, we have many. So to really see that type of work in action was super cool to me. It's still a ways to go, but I think it will have a big impact in my field. So for me personally, my research was super personal. The very thing that I did my research was the thing that my grandmother passed away from. So I think it's a major contribution to the field in making advances in the medicine. So my grandma had a chronic wound and she ultimately passed away from it in 2022. So to be able to work on something that could save someone else's grandma in the future is super, super meaningful to me personally. But as far as the field, I think it definitely continues to drive forward the innovation and the innovative research that is happening in tissue regeneration. Motivated me. My advisor, really, he was the one who told me about the Title III Chancellor's Fellowship after a conversation. So I actually came to A&T in 2020. So right before COVID happened, so January 2020, I came out here. Relocated from Chicago, and I knew if I was moving 11 hours away from home that I would ultimately end up doing my PhD. So I came for a master's, but I said it didn't really make sense for me to just uproot my life just for a master's, just for a year. So I made the decision to explore PhD options, and I had a conversation one day with my advisor to let him know, like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing my PhD, this is what I'm thinking. And he redirected me to mechanical engineering because I was thinking of another department, but he redirected me and said, I think this one would be a better fit for you, and really pushed me to get my resume together so that I could be a good candidate for Title III. So he was the one who really influenced me to do some good research, do some good work to be a good candidate for the fellowship. Here in North Carolina A&T, I have met some great mentors, great teachers, great leaders. It's advanced me by, I think, exposing me to a lot of opportunities that I don't think I would have had if I went elsewhere. And I really recently just had the chance to really sit and reflect with that. I think that's really the biggest thing, is just putting me in position and aligning me for certain positions and certain opportunities that I don't think I would have gotten elsewhere. PhD in and of itself is challenging. And I think throughout this process, it's been a long, long road. It started with a lot of loss for me, a lot of self-loss, a lot of personal loss. Like I said, my grandmother died 2022. That was my first year in my PhD program. That was a super challenging time. Right before I entered the PhD program, my father also passed away, which kind of life didn't slow down at that point. And such a big transition to lose your father, start a PhD program, and then that first year, personally, I also was in the span of like 6 months, 3 car accidents, 2 of which were within a week of each other. So that was super, super challenging. So I think the first couple years was really finding myself and really trying to find my footing in the program, because it was super challenging to navigate everything happening around me, because when you're in these programs, life doesn't stop. It continues to happen all around you, and you have to find yourself, find your footing, find your grounding, and continue to push forward in something that's also challenging while having challenges occur around you. So I think that was the most challenging part for me. Communication skills, project management skills, to time management as well. It's something I've always really struggled with, but I kind of had to learn how to manage my time and manage my time well being a PhD student. Even some of the lab skills that I obtained, never did any cell culture work, so that was cool to get a chance to do that. And then also throughout my PhD, one of the biggest projects that I got to work on was actually building and modifying a 3D printer, which was super fun for me, because I used to play with Legos when I was a kid, but never thought I'd build something on that scale. So that was super cool to actually take like materials that were just random and build them up to a machine. So that was super cool for me. Yes, I do. I think we've done a lot of personal development or professional development sessions that were mandatory for us to attend. But I think even the exposure, whether it was through sessions that teach us how to like write our dissertations and how to plan that out, or just the different talks that we've had with different people. I remember Dr. Treadwell came to speak with us a couple of times, and he always preached about like the imposter syndrome and how that was real. So some of those moments definitely did stick with me, and I think continue to stick with me, because even now that I have defended, it's like wow, I'm really a doctor now, and kind of feel like an imposter in some way, because it's like I really did that. So I do think it definitely did prepare me and just open my eyes and give me a lot of insight to a lot. Advice I would give to any future fellows, and advice that I really would give anyone pursuing a PhD is, first and foremost, know your why, because it will get hard. It's not going to always be an easy road, and knowing your why is something that will help you get through it. For me particularly, I didn't come in with a clear why beyond I moved 11 hours away from home, but I think God is always in the details, and life has a funny way of working itself out, because like I said, my grandmother passed away, so my why later became, this is a real problem. Like, I enjoyed the research I was doing, but it didn't have such a personal effect on me until it had a personal effect on me and made me realize just how much of a problem chronic wounds were, and to see it firsthand affect someone that I care about gave me a really strong why to keep going. There were many nights I cried. Probably year 3 and 4, I cried probably every day, and I'm sure friends and family got sick of me, but my why that pushed me through was, why am I doing this? Because I lost somebody I cared dearly about to this condition, and the work that I'm doing will be able to help someone else one day. Yes, I have been to a couple different conferences. I actually just got back 2 weeks ago now from a world tour. Went to 2 conferences within like the span of a week of each other. So been to the NSBE conference. I attended the Society for Biomaterials conference a couple times. Last year I had the opportunity to go to the Southeastern Biomedical Engineering Conference. So a couple different conferences where I've been able to present. At the SEBC conference, I had an oral presentation. At the SFB conference that I recently attended, it was a poster presentation, which was great. It's always great to share my research and meet new people who are also passionate about research and science and different innovations that are going on. And I did also publish a manuscript last September, I'm going to say, working on wrapping up my second manuscript now, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that I receive a patent out of the work that I've worked on as well.